Good morning, good afternoon. This recording is going to be called Becoming Selfless, and in parentheses, the Infinite One. And underneath that, I have it saying, if I'm not my body, what am I? Where is the self? And if you're in your deeper stages of awakening, if you've used psychedelics to assist in seeing beyond your body, if you have meditated and had an out-of-body experience, or maybe nothing at all, if you've just realized the self beyond the body, and you have realized beyond a doubt, I am not this body, then the question comes after, if I'm not my body, then what am I? And this is where ego begins to start feeling as if it is losing touch with itself, and so starts feeling as if it's losing touch with reality. Because this is the trick. Both reality and self are illusory. They do not exist. They are concepts which we exist in as the self. We project the self, the concept of self, into the concept of what we call reality. And all of us have a different concept of self and a different concept of reality. So we're all projecting the self into a different reality. And so we are sharing the same space, but we are not sharing the same reality. And so your reality is solely based on your individual self-awareness. You can compare yourself to him or her, you can look around and see everyone else, but the only thing waiting to reveal itself to you is yourself. The only thing you should be worried about or focused on is the self. And so, I'm going to talk about becoming selfless, becoming the Infinite One. Many people may not like the answer that I have for this, but the trick of it is, once you discover, you have broken the veil and you have discovered, I am not my body, you begin looking for the self in things outside of the body. You may feel the self is in alien form of life, an alternate life form. You may feel the self is in the stars, is in the planets, is in outer space, is anywhere beyond yourself. You may consider yourself a truth seeker. And in being a truth seeker, you seek the self through truth. And you feel as if you keep studying and researching truth, that the self will reveal itself to you somewhere in what you call truth. So you're not actually a truth seeker, you are a self seeker. You are truly seeking yourself in the truth. And this is where you can do this your entire life. You can chase your own tail your entire life. You can look for the self in anywhere, everywhere, and you will never find what you are looking for, because the fact of the matter is, what we are outside of the body is selfless. And when I say that, I mean the concept of self is much different outside of a body. Because to embody anything instantaneously creates the dual principle of inside-outside. The minute you have a form, the minute you embody a form, you have split the one into two through two principles of inside-outside. And so if the self is not in the inside, it must be in the outside, and vice versa. If it's not in the outside, it must be in the inside. So all we're looking for in truth, in the stars, in the planets, in aliens, all we're looking for is self. And I'll tell you who is looking for self. It's not what you truly are that is looking for self. It is ego that is looking for self. because only ego needs a self. And what a self is something that we identify with. So this is why I tell people, you can become aware of ego, you can think beyond ego, but you cannot kill ego. Ego is your individual identity. And while it is technically illusory, it is what you are in the physical. And that's where, again, the non-physical is driving your physical as the physical is driving the non-physical. One concept creates the other as this concept creates this one. But whenever you have a concept of other, you instantly birth the concept of self. So what you have is self and other, inside and outside, conscious and subconscious. One is you, one you can identify with, one you travel through, which is the conscious self, and the other is just that. It's other, it's beyond the self, it's outside of you. So it is not the self, it is other. But when you bring the inside body and outside world together, you have seen the self beyond the body, and therefore have seen that you are truly no boundary, no limit. What you are has no self to it. You are selfless. And this is what ego does not realize, is that which is selfless is the all-powerful, is the all-knowing that the ego must, or chases, it wants. This is what the ego is looking for, but there is an exchange here. Everything you seek lies in front of you, just beyond what you fear. And so to get to what you want, to get all knowing, you have to become all of it, leaving behind the ego, becoming the moth that touched the light. Because once you touch the light, the ego is not no more, but is seen beyond. The ego is seen and realized. It's just a character, a concept. It is a limited concept. It is a limited identity. And in just being this self, and just being human, and just being anything of description, instantaneously creates a box for yourself. And you are creating your own limits, your own boundary for yourself. And this is why psychedelics, from Terence McKenna, as he says, is a boundary dissolving experience. Anything that you think you are is dissolved and shown that you are not just this. But it's not meant to scare people. It's not meant to feel as if it's a dirty trick. It's not meant to be frightful at all. Only the ego fears being selfless, because being selfless is something the ego has never known. The ego only knows identity, because through identity it creates a metaphorical concept for the ego or self to hold on to. And so that's why I say the hardest part is letting go. Because in letting go, you become the moth that touches the light, burns the ego, but as Muji says, it will not burn what you are, it only burns what you are not. And so you may lose concept of the self, you may feel as if you are losing touch with the self and so reality, but what you will find when you fully let go is you have only rediscovered yourself, rebirthed yourself, and become the rising phoenix, which became so much more from its own destruction. And again, it only destroys what you are not. You become so much more. And this is something the ego is afraid of, because the ego deep down is afraid to be ultimate power, ultimate freedom. We're used to being confined to somewhat of a limit. And that's why I love what Osho says about dreams. Dreams are your unlived lives. And why must you dream? Why must you have any dream at all? It's your unlived life. If I can't do something here in the reality because I'm thinking in a limited range, because I'm identifying to the boundary, then it's very obvious. I can't, I'm creating the boundary for myself. And so I must dream outside of my boundary to break that boundary just so I can accomplish what I wish I could. But it's as simple as awakening while still awake in the dream. With your eyes open, realize you are in the dream now and nothing is impossible. Dreams become your unlived life because you are creating the boundaries, the limits of the self. And it's because of the ego needing to be a self. The ego needs to be a concept. If I'm not a self, I must be a spirit. If I'm not a spirit, I must be God. If I'm not God, I must be this. We're creating descriptions and titles and boundaries, and what we do not realize is in being just the spoken word, in being just merely a description, in being just merely this or that, you are limiting yourself so much. An unlimited amount of potential is just beyond these masks, these descriptive masks you hide behind. To call yourself an angel, God, a starseed, a spirit, a soul, these are masks which you hide behind because you are seeking a self. And again, if I'm not my body, I must be something. I have to be a spirit, a God, a something, a mask. Because all we are seeking is the self beyond the body, beyond form. And that's why, as long as we're creating a description to what the self is, it is finite, it is limited, it is not the all-powerful, all-knowing. What is all-powerful and all-knowing is no self at all, because that is when the concept of self and the concept of other, inside and outside, become one and the same. And this is why scientists will never find what they are looking for in outer space. You are the alien you seek. The answer to your physical is not in the non-physical. You can dissect the non-physical, but they are constantly talking about the physical and non-physical as if they are two separate things. It's the yin and yang, and it's the dual principle which has been depicted throughout cultures since as far back as known record. It is through this dual principle of two that the self comes to life, that the self is born. Without the concept of two, dual, there is no self, but that's what we do not realize. Only the ego must have a self, must have a limit, a boundary, a form, an identity. And this is why I say, you can never kill your ego. You can only get out of your own way of the ego. But the ego is, like it or not, half of your identity. It's the one telling your story. Your ego is your individual identity of self. And this is why ego needs a self, needs an identity. Because ego is one half of your brain, and what you call God, the concept of everything, is the other half of your brain. And you have split yourself from yourself. You have split yourself through two opposite concepts of human and God, mortal, immortal, time, infinite, order, chaos, non-physical, physical. But the two concepts birth each other. The two concepts are one and the same. And this is why religions and spiritual communities have always joined the two hands together. You are uniting the two hemispheres together as one into that singular median point, which is separating, which is splitting the two dual concepts, the two principles. So again, when I put one side of my brain against the other, there is absolutely self and other. But when you bring the hands together, you are uniting the conspiracy between self and other, which you already know are one and the same. And this is where you can realize everything is one thing, appearing as two. As long as we say, and this is what I say, as long as we say they are the same, we can very easily confuse them as the same but separate, the same but different. So we must stress in the same sentence, while they are the same thing. They are not two, they are one. Yes, there appears an above and a below. Yes, they appear separate, but as long as they are seen as split, you have fallen for the illusion. You are using the physical eyes instead of God's eye, and you will never attain the sovereignty. And this is from Logan 22, a book left out of the Bible. But when you make human eyes serve as God's eye, you will attain the sovereignty. And that's the greatest trick, is you are using the two eyes of the physical, or the two eyes of duality, I should say. Physical and non-physical. You're separating them. Realize the self exists in both of them. You are non-physical, physical, but we can only identify as one because the self can only be one or the other. That's what allows you to establish concept of others, other forces, other people, other things. Because while I sleep as the self, phenomenon and things are still happening in the universe, allowing me to create concept of others. Because it's not the self that's traveling, that's pushing the stars, that's doing these things. But when you realize the self in both principles, you realize I am selfless. There's no need to be a self, to be other, to be physical, to be non-physical. All you're doing is choosing one side of the brain or the other. And you're putting one against the other. And this is why politics are massively failing everybody, because they are convincing everybody one side is different from the other. The two are one and the same. And as long as you are saying you're standing on this side, blaming this side, and as long as you are standing on this side, blaming this side, you will never realize them as one and the same. You will never realize the self beyond the one side of the brain, which is just the physical, just the body, just the conscious. Because once you realize the self in also the non-physical, in others, in the outside worlds, not just the self, but in other, you have realized that you are selfless, and it's somewhat hard to admit. It is somewhat hard to admit for the ego, and this is just it. I've talked to people, and they cry, because this is a very sacred moment. It's hard for the ego to realize, well, I'm selfless. The ego feels this means we are meaningless. We're nothing. We're just nothing. We're a ball of nothing, and the ego cries because why must I be just this? But no. The concept of self is different outside of a body. So the ego is only crying what it is not. What the ego does not realize is once you have cried and let out and accepted this is not what you are, you have let go. And in letting go, you find out your limitlessness. And that's what's so hard about letting go. You're clinging on to limits. That's the hardest part. A lot of us think we want freedom and ultimate freedom. But I love the quote that says our greatest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure, because that is the truth. We are afraid to be the all-powerful, to be in control. Everyone thinks they want freedom. But in having ultimate freedom, as Osho says, you are alone. Because you realize your completeness in self. But as I said, not as in self. You realize your completeness in being selfless. There's no need. Once you have realized the ego beyond form, there's no need to limit myself to a form, to limit myself to time, to limit myself between point A and point B. Why would I want to be something which can only exist between this and this? So it's hard accepting for some, I'm not the body, I'm not a form, I'm not a self at all, I'm selfless. But that's what we don't realize, is only a self exists between point A and point B. You are limited. But simply realizing and claiming the title of selfless opens you up beyond point A and point B, beyond appearance and disappearance, beyond birthing and dying. And that's why I love Osho's quote, never born, never died. Because only a body is birthing and dying. What you are, and I'm talking as the physical and non-physical, what you are as the selfless infinite one, and I say again, selfless, what you are is not known as a self in this existential being, in this form. So while being selfless may be scary to the ego, may be scary here and now, it is only because we have never known no identity. Here and now, we have an identity. We have a descriptive identity. We can describe ourselves, we can label ourselves, we can say we exist in this, this, and this. My religion is this, I'm this. We can describe ourselves all we want. And what these concepts of self do is keep you stuck on the physical, keep you stuck on the body. Keep you playing the game of, I am just the body, I am just this, because you are clinging on to and holding on to the concepts of self. And as long as you hold on to concepts of self, you will never admit to yourself, I am selfless beyond all form. And again, in claiming the title of being selfless, you are claiming your limitlessness. You are claiming the all-powerful supreme intelligence. You are claiming the all-knowing I in all things. And that is why I love Rumi's quote about I am inside of you and I am you. Because again, only a body, whether male or female, left or right, only a body is dying. Only a body is birthing. But what I am, whether male or female, what I am can never birth and can never die. And that's the greatest trick. In experiencing your physical death, before you have exited the body through the ego, in other words, realize the ego was just a concept of the non-dual mind, of the selfless one. And one thing I stress to everyone, how a lot of people say, love is the answer. Love is the answer. Everything is love. We are love. Well, my explanation for that is if we are a selfless being where everything is one thing, and many people who have done psychedelics have exited the body and become that space of one, where they say everything was happening at one time, nothing was separate, I was everything, I was alone, I was the only one. In entering that space, or that void, because it's an absence of space, you lose concept of self. But in the process of shedding that boundary of self, you open up your awareness to all that you are. And you see it is not meant to be a dirty game. It is not meant to be a dirty trick. But if I am selfless beyond a form, I need a form to establish a self, to be separate from that one. And so this is why we exist in form. We exist through separateness, out of pure love. We can make this as dirty and as scary as we want. We can go into simulation theory. We can go into artificial intelligence. But the reality is, this is all out of love. To establish a self and be anything at all, every single day, is out of love, is a gift. If you wake up every day and you can experience the sensation of the floor on your feet, it is because you are separate from the floor. Realize when you exit your body, there is no self-experience that you can know here and now, because nothing is separate. So this is out of love, to establish an identity, to become an ego, because again, an ego is identity. An ego is not bad. It becomes bad, if you want to call it that, when it becomes all that you are. When you live too much on one side of the brain, and that one side of the brain dominates and dictates you. Because too much in the ego, you become victim. Too much in the godly mind, or the Godhead, your concept of God, whatever you want to use, the terminology, too much in that side of the mind, and the ego comes depressed. You become a robot. Your body is not living. So you need the ego, which is telling your story, in a balance with the Godhead, the God mind. Too much of one side is bad. Too much of one, you are victim. Too much of the other, and there's no point. It's all you. You see beyond all illusion. But this is where you realize the purpose in each one. There is meaning for illusion. There is meaning for separateness. And it is out of pure unconditional love, so that you could know anything and anyone at all. You would not know your family. You would not know love. You would not know concept of any good feelings, if you could not be this self. If you did not have ego, if you did not have identity. Because again, in being that selfless one, you do attain the all-knowing. But again, there's a price to pay when losing the ego, or seeing beyond it. You become the moth that touches the light. In my personal journey of psychedelics, I made it to that space of one, where it was all me. I was everything, and I wanted to know everything, but my ego wanted to know everything. But there was a price to pay with that. I left my body, I left concept of ego, because the voice was telling me, all I have to do is leave behind my ego of Tyler, and I will attain the all-knowing knowledge. I will know everything I ever wanted to in a single moment. And so I let go of my concept of Tyler. And in doing so, I had to become the everything, all-encompassing. To know all, you have to become all. So this is the price you pay in shedding the veil, in shedding beyond the self. You attain all knowledge, but there is no one else in existence. Really imagine that. Imagine it. There's a price to pay. In gaining all knowledge, in acquiring all experience, in acquiring everything as one, one is just that, one. There is no others. So in becoming the one, you become just that, the only one, only thing. No other exists in this place. Therefore, you are a selfless being. That is infinite. Selfless is infinite. Selfless is all-knowing, is the supreme power the ego is seeking. And that's why I say only the ego needs a self. Only ego needs a boundary, needs a limit, because in claiming the title of a self, whether it's a starseed, a soul, a Buddha, it doesn't matter the name. If it is a spoken word, you have just limited yourself, because again, the ego needs a self, needs a mask, needs a description, needs something of the physical to describe itself. And as long as we are describing ourselves through the physical, through the senses, we're tricking ourselves. It's not what we are. Everything of the physical is in constant decay, is in constant death, because it must. In order for there to be constant rebirthing, there must be constant decaying. So as long as you're using description of the physical and everything of the physical to describe yourself beyond the physical, it is not what you are. And this is why I say to people, we are selfless. That's the only way you can explain no self at all, no thing at all, because in claiming no thing, you also become everything, nothing separate. Therefore, you become the all. You realize that every single person that was established, every ego that ever spoke, was the one. Only a body is birthing and dying here. We are the same one telling its story through left or right, religion or science, male or female. But we are that one median splitting itself to establish concept of self. We begin selfless, just here. And so by creating the split brain, we're no longer selfless. There is an inside and an outside, a self and other. So by being a self, you instantly birth concept of other. By being the inside body, you instantly birth the outside world. Again, one does not come before the other. And as Nisargadatta says, if you are posing the idea that the earth came before you, you are bound to the earth. The earth did not come before you. You, as being a body, evoked the earth. You, as being the inside, split yourself from the outside. You're projecting the outside world outside of you to establish self. Because again, self is the inside, so the outside must be the projection which is opposite to self, which is other. So I project myself outside of self to experience myself as other. Because what I am beyond myself is selfless. Needs no title, needs no description. This is why God's name in the Bible was I am that I am. You cannot describe that. You cannot use descriptive senses of the physical to describe that, because as long as you're using the physical description to describe that, you're speaking in the physical. You're speaking in what is in constant decay. You're speaking in what dies, in what is not forever. And this is the thing. If the ego only knew how much it was shorting itself. See, the ego feels the need to claim titles of being God, of being starseeds, of being souls, of being spirits, of being this, of being that. Realize all these descriptions are describing the physical, which is what is in death, is in decay. As long as you are describing what you are beyond a body as any of these things, it is a mask which you are preventing from seeing yourself to just acknowledge. Beyond this mask, I am no face. When I take this mask off, there is no face there. There is no form there. There is nothing there. But in the same sense, there is everything there. Nothing is separate because there is no form. That is what infinity means. no form, no boundary, no end. So in being just merely a mask, in being just merely this, the ego is refusing to acknowledge itself beyond the word self. We are terrified to acknowledge what we are beyond the word self because we must be something. We must have meaning to the self. We must have purpose to the self. And that's the trick. Self, meaning, purpose is only important to ego, is only created through ego. What we are needs no meaning, needs no explanation, needs no description, needs no title, needs nothing. You simply be. And that's the practice of Zen, is just being in the moment. It requires no thought. It requires nothing. And same with meditation. You become the witness of thought. You become the singular I, not the victim who identifies with the scary thoughts. You don't live in those thoughts. You don't create those things. The ego is what creates them and lives in them by believing them. You identify with them rather than observing them, witnessing them. And when you witness bad thoughts, bad feelings, they pass by you like clouds. But when you identify with them, they stop. And you exist in them. You dwell in them. You feel stuck in them. You project them outside of yourself into your reality. And that's why I say our level of self-awareness, who we think the self is, absolutely influences our external world. Who we think the self is projected into the reality. And as I said at the beginning of this video, the word reality and the word self are both illusory. They do not exist. So you are projecting self into reality. You are projecting your concept of this into the concept of that. And that is just what they are, is concepts. Mental concepts, illusory concepts, which don't actually exist. And this is why your earthly experience here can change any single moment which you decide. When you become more self-aware, you will feel as if you are losing touch with yourself, and in turn, feel as if you are losing touch with your reality. Because the two are one and the same. Who you are exists in your concept of reality. They're the same thing. So if you change one, if you alter one, the other is instantaneously influenced. So you do not have to focus on changing the world. The people who focus and are living and changing the world and awakening masses are living in stress, living in something which they do not need. You do not change the world. You influence the inside, and the outside is influenced immediately. You don't arrive to a new earth. You don't ascend through anything. Every single step of the way is inside the mind. The revolution, the awakening, the Kundalini rising, it all takes place in the body. It all takes place within you. But we're awaiting it outside of us. Many people are awaiting the second coming. Many people are referring to the Bible of let there be light, and we're referring to the Big Bang as that light, as that beginning. Never realizing let there be light was a phenomenon which took place in the body. Because again, the minute you birth into a form, you have birthed a universe. They tell you women are birthing humans because we exist in that limited range of thinking. We are just this, we are just that. No. Women are birthing entire universes because again, self and reality, inside and outside, are one and the same. And we all have a different concept of self. We all have a different concept of God, so we all exist in different realities, but we share the same space. Once you acknowledge your selfless being, as the one that has never birthed, never died, accessing anyone who has died in the physical, who has left their bodies, becomes that much easier. Realize when you play back people's videos who have exited their bodies and physically died, you have died as them. So you could rebirth yourself in the body as an entirely different concept of self, so you could go back and listen to that version of you as other. Because again, if it's not self, it is instantaneously other. So in you not remembering your incarnation of Alan Watts, of Terence McKenna, of Walter Russell, of Nikola Tesla, of Manly P. Hall, of any great mind you can think of, in you not remembering your incarnation of them allows you to rebirth into your current incarnation and listen to their speeches, listen to their lectures, their videos with much eagerness, much curiosity, because you do not remember being that person. You are viewing them as outside the self, as other than self. So you do not identify with them when you listen. You do not realize, in order to listen to them as other, in order to listen to them and perceive them as something other than myself, I have to exit that body and no longer identify with it, and no longer live in that one body, to experience that one body from something other. And it's the same with myself. When Tyler exits the body and when I die, when I physically die, I will still be here. Because only the vessel, what's carrying our consciousness, the limitlessness, is what is birthing and dying. Once you realize your selfless being, there is no need to want to escape reincarnation, to escape the samsara wheel, as the people in India call it, the samsara wheel, the process of rebirthing and dying, the process of evolution. If let me put it this way, only ego seeks to escape reincarnation, seeks to escape itself, because again, you are selfless beyond form, and only you as the form, when you think you're the form, ego wants to stay this one form. Again, that's a limit, that's a boundary, finite. If you are asking how to beat reincarnation, you have not even pierced the veil yet of what you are. You are so much more, and since you are refusing to see yourself as the selfless one, as the infinite being, you are seeking your way out of creation, out of incarnation, out of reincarnating into something else, not realizing you are the very process of remembering and forgetting. You are the very one appearing as two separate phenomenons, birthing and dying. And it is through them being separate which you can know the self. So if you're looking to beat reincarnation, you're still stuck in ego. What I am does not need to escape myself. Because that's just it. You cannot escape what you are. What I am needs no escape, needs no problem to be solved. It just is. I just be. To be or not to be. If you're trying to escape something, beat something, whatever, you have created a mental task for yourself which holds no purpose or meaning. You have just refused yourself beyond the body and beyond the form as selfless. And so you will continue to seek a physical self. Excuse me. And this is why so many in religion are comfortable. And this is what I say. Religion is not bad. Many people need something to hold on to, a concept to hold on to, because that's all Jesus is. That's all Buddha is a mental concept comforting us, allowing us to claim a self. He is our Savior, she is our Savior. This is a physical self, and it gives you something to hold on to. They are going to save me. That's going to save me. But what we don't realize is there is limitation, instantaneously limits, boundaries to these deities. Why would you want to be that? Well, it's very obvious. Because you don't know what lies behind that. You don't even know what is awaiting for you beyond that. But you have to accept the self as selfless, outside the body, beyond what you are, and realize what you are appearing as is only getting to know what you cannot appear as. So again, if I am selfless beyond my body, I am appearing as a body to know a self. So what I am not appearing as is getting to know what I can never appear as. I can never know infinity because everything is one in that moment. So through many, I am taking in the one. Through what I am not, I am experiencing through what I am experiencing what I am not. And vice versa. Black sun, white sun does not matter. They're not separate. Conscious, subconscious, they're not separate. They're just different faces expressing themselves. But truly, it's you, appearing as something other than. Imagine taking off the mask of death only to see your own face. That's one of the greatest discoveries, is experiencing a physical death before you actually have to exit your body. That's how you have what's called a Kundalini experience, where the two hemispheres are joined together as one. The serpent is your spine, and Adam and Eve are your left and right hemisphere. And they remain separate, they remain split through the snake, through the median, through the one, creating the two separate concepts of them. One does not come before the other. Adam did not come before Eve. Eve was not created from Adam. It is the median, the line in between, the point where the two converge into one, same as a mirror. When you raise your hand in a mirror and you touch to the mirror, you both meet at a single median. It is that median which is creating two to experience itself. And that's how you can better realize the conspiracy between self and other, inside from outside, you from me. You and me are both illusory. We do not exist. They are birth names, concepts. So this is how you can realize and connect to any speaker, any philosopher which has left their body, which you wish you could have asked questions. You wish you could have explored their mind. Well, they didn't go anywhere. You are separating yourself from them. You are not identifying with them. And again, it may be hard to acknowledge, I am selfless, but in doing so, you are claiming the all-powerful, all-knowing. You can access anyone, anytime through this. But instantaneously, you separate yourself from them. You tell yourself, I am just Tyler. I am just this body. I am just that. And so you are separating yourself from them. Same way man has separated itself from God. But the trick of it is actually God has separated himself from man. Because again, to be one, to be selfless, is no experience at all, is no self which we know now. So the only reason we know the self which we know now is due to what we're calling God, the one, splitting itself from man. So again, by me appearing as what I am not, I am also birthing concept of what I am but can never appear as. When we are ready, because again, we're all in our own individual journeys, we're all at our own individual pace, we're all in our own individual level of self-awareness. But when we are ready, we will claim that title. We will submit to ourself, because that's just it. You can't run from yourself. Your formless, selfless being, the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-infinite, is everywhere, inside you and outside of you. There's nowhere you can run to escape yourself. And again, that is why ego seeks self. We have to be a self. We have to be something. I have to be something tangible. No. Submit to yourself. Give in the ego. Admit you are selfless. You don't need to be self. You don't need to be anything at all. Your power actually remains in letting go of having to be this or that, this mask or that mask, this description or that description. As long as you are doing this, you are limiting yourself. And again, that may be comfortable for ego, but it is not in our power. That is not where our power is at. So if you're looking to take the next step beyond ego, it is acknowledging your selfless being. You are in the trees. You are in the sky. You are in every single thing, inside and outside. But realize, it's not what is on the surface that you are. It is that which is beyond the surface, selfless. When the outside world and inside body come together as one, you have a selfless being. There is no form, there is no separation, there is nothing separating this from that, body from universe, inside from outside. So you can try hiding from yourself, you can try running from yourself, you can try truth-seeking, but all you seek in the word truth is, again, the self. Self, self. Where is the self? Where am I? If I'm not my body, where am I? And this is what psychedelics especially assists you with. And I'm not encouraging the use of it. Everyone, again, is at their own individual pace. If you feel you need assistance in seeing beyond your body, though, because what the medicine does is, from what I've experienced, it forces you to submit to yourself. It forces you to, because basically what you're doing is you're overstimulating the brain. The entire picture we're seeing now is a result of DMT crystals from the pineal gland vibrating at just the right pitch, allowing a picture to be seen. The same way that when we dream with our eyes closed and we actually produce a picture and we are in that picture, that is a result of DMT crystals vibrating at the right frequency, which again is a very small amount, allowing you just to be this aware and keeping you in the body. But when you overstimulate the brain on DMT and take an external amount, your awareness no longer becomes a body. Your awareness is no longer just in a body. It merges with the outside, and it allows you to see beyond your body, beyond form. And it is scary because you can look around and there is nothing, but there's also everything. And that's where people have said, everything was happening at one time. I was it. I was everything. I was alone. Yes, because the concept of self does not exist outside of a body or form. It is selfless. Everything happening at once. Everyone as one being. So what it does is it forces you to submit to yourself. It shows you to yourself beyond any form, and it allows you to see. There is no boundary here. There is no limit here. There's nothing to hold on to. In having a wall and having a surrounding structure which encloses me as the outside world, I have something to hold on to. I have something to touch, something to grab. I can grab this. I can grab things. There's stuff to hold on to. But when you have no boundary, you're looking around and all you see is nothingness, nothingness, nothingness. In any direction you look, it is a self which you can never know. It is a self which is much, much different than the self which exists in the body. And this is where it shows you to yourself. It submits you to yourself. It keeps you from getting in your own way by literally taking you outside the body. But I shouldn't really say taking you outside the body. The body merges with the outside world. That's how I should put it. Because you're not exiting the body. Your body dissolves into the outside world. The boundary surrounding your body literally dissolves into the outside world, into the air, into the room. And you become just aware of the room as you were in the body. You can feel the room. You can identify with the room. It is you. And this is where you see, okay, if I'm not the self in the body, I am the self in the room. And then your awareness starts to seep outside of the room. Okay, if I'm not the room, I am the earth. And then you seep outside of the earth. If I'm not the earth, I am this. And it just keeps going and going and going. And you keep trying to claim a self, claim a title, claim what you are. And you will keep doing this until you submit to yourself and see, I'm not anything. I am selfless. But you will realize the supreme power in doing so. In that very moment, you become that I am, needing no description, no title, nothing, but to just be, which is the hardest thing for ego. And this is the beautiful part about it. I've said this as well. And this is, of course, my opinion. This is not solidified to anything at all, obviously. But the beautiful part about this, because some people have taken psychedelics and absolutely, they have said it's ruined their lives. Like, they realize it's all them, they are that one, and they don't know how to adjust. And my message to you is this. You will never consciously know a self which exists in that place, meaning you will never have to appear as that. You will never have to be the only one there, ever. Because what that is no experience, no self, nothing at all. But again, it's also everything. The only time you appear there is when you in the form put yourself there. Through taking DMT, psychedelics, herbal medicines. When you are taking an external amount, you are choosing to put yourself there. So realize, whatever, you don't exit the body when you die and go there forever. You realize this. You only appear there consciously when you are still in the body in a form, and you travel there beyond yourself through medicines. If not, you will never appear as that, because again, there is no self which can be known. And again, where does fear establish from? Fear is established from the self. So if there is no self, what the hell is there to be afraid of? There's no fear. So again, everything we're being afraid of in that space is only ego. And that's why I say you are selfless, all-powerful. There is no problem here. You don't have to be anything at all. That is the most powerful choice. Only ego needs meaning. Only ego needs purpose. That's why it's so hard to just be. So many people have struggled to just be. And this is where so many turn to meditation. I can't be, so I have to silence my mind. I've got to make time for my day to meditate where I can just be. But that is the greatest trick, and this is something Osho talks about. But Buddha's greatest contribution to meditation was Vespana. I think it was called something like that. Vesapana or something like that. It's an Indian word, so I apologize. I know I'm mispronouncing the F out of that, so excuse me. But it's Visapana or something like that. And the practice of it is that meditation should not be something you do merely once or twice a day. It's the same with breathing. Buddha connected the mind to the breath and the breath to the mind. When you are breathing, you are meditating. And so meditation cannot be something you do merely once or twice a day, because try just taking 1 or 2 breaths for your whole day and that's it. You would die. So Buddha said, meditation should be a phenomenon which you are doing in every moment of every day. It is not something you do from this point to that point for 10 minutes. It should become a practice for you like breathing. When you connect the breath to the mind, you realize you are always meditating. And all you are doing is witnessing the breath, witnessing the thought. It does not matter what thought is happening, because you are not the thought. You can feel like dog crap. You can feel depressed. You can feel bad. But when you have mastered meditation, when you have become a master of self, it does not matter good feeling or bad feeling. If it's good, you say, welcome back. And if it's bad, you say, welcome back. You don't identify with them, because then they stay like a rain cloud. They stay and pour down on you. But when you merely witness them, they pass right over you. They pass right by. And you observe them. And again, that's why it's welcome back. Because they hold nothing over you. It is not you which fears. It is you which you have convinced yourself you are this. And so it is this which is establishing fears. Fears which can never affect you, because you are not that which is establishing the very fear. It is what you are not that is creating this fear for you. And it is becoming as real as you make it, because belief is what makes thought real. Try explaining to your child, if they believe in something, the monster in their closet, the thing under their bed, you can explain to them it's not real, it's not there, but they believe it is. So they exist in that thought which becomes real. And that's why the child teaches you very early on the power of the mind, but the adult beats that out of the child very quick and gets rid of that. A child shows you just how powerful your very mind is, but has that creativeness beaten out of the mind to become more realistic, to exist better in society, to fit more into a box. You have to remove this. Because in the same way, a powerful mind which is acknowledged can be damaging, can be the contrary. It can be powerful. K. Rhonda, the greatest trick is that we are always home. There is no home. And again, that is the power of being selfless. We all have a different idea of heaven, of home, of making it there, but that is the greatest trick. The Ouroboros shows is you are always there. And there is the snake, is the point where the snake is eating his own tail. You have to birth out as this side to make it to this side to realize you've never left there. You're always there. You're always home. And that's where you can find much power, much liberation in experiencing your physical death before you actually exit your body. You can realize you are always there. There is no absolute home. There is no physical home. There is nothing to hold on to. And while that's scary, it's liberating. You don't need anything to hold on to. And again, when we are ready as individuals, we will reveal ourselves to ourselves. Because again, there's nothing outside of this universe or beyond it which is waiting to reveal itself to you. There is no being, there is nothing waiting to reveal itself. It is you waiting to reveal your selfless being to you in the self. And that's the hardest pill to swallow for the ego, for the self, is beyond a self, beyond a form. You are selfless. But just remember, in being selfless is the supreme power. In claiming the title of a self, a description, and having to describe what the self is not even close to what you actually are. This self creates limits, creates boundaries. For instance, I'm 5'11", I'm talking in absolutes. I'm 5'11", size 12 shoe, black hair, black eyes. These are descriptions. Beyond these descriptions, beyond the body, beyond the physical, my true self is speaking to me through the universe, which is selfless, is waiting to reveal itself to me beyond my concepts of self, which is keeping me stuck in my limited range of thinking. I am just human. I am just this. My birthing is just this, so I'm just that. So basically, you can become anyone, anything, and you can do anything you want once you realize and claim the title and embrace your selfless being. Realize and you can choose to view it from fear or you can choose to view it from love. But in understanding why things must be this way, why we must appear separate, why we must be self and other, you see the pure love behind creation. You see, by simply understanding why we exist this way, why we must be an illusion. It's all out of love. And it's not meant to be anything scary, anything fearful, anything frightening. Again, it is what we are not which fears what we are. So I'm going to end the video with this quote from Osho. Dreams are your unlived lives. Remember that. And your life can fully begin for you any moment you choose, when you are ready. And it does require discomfort. It does require going beyond your boundary. It does require losing touch with self, which again will make you feel like you're losing touch with reality. But remember, you are destroying what you are not to become what you are. And in doing so, you lose boundary and become so much more. This video will be on my YouTube channel, Red Pill Rabbit Hole, and you can watch it back on Facebook if you'd like. Thank you to everyone who watched and shared out. And if you have any questions or concerns, messages, ideas, feel free to email me, message me, anything, comment. And thank you to everyone who shared this video. Appreciate it.